welcome to Nolix Part 7, the last part in this very, very long series. I'm so glad to get this layout done. So today we're actually getting started on the last module that is rectangular in shape, and it actually connects to the first module we built in Episode 1. So this connects to the big ramp module that we finished in the last episode, and this is kind of a weird one because it is actually 3 different levels. So I have part of the reverted helix or the reverted loop at the top. We also have an open area on the bottom that actually is going to open up into like a waterfront area. And then the middle layer obviously is that ramp continuing from the module we built at the end of episode 6. So what I'm doing here is it's the same general concept as the last module. Again, I'm putting the strong backs on this particular module because, again, it is freestanding. It's not leaning against the wall, so it doesn't have that extra support. So I'm going ahead and notching these C brackets to make sure that they notch into the piece of 3.5-inch plywood that I'm using for the backers. And then I'm just going ahead and drilling pocket holes to secure them with. So one of the things you'll notice is, when I do build with these brackets, I do build them in a couple different ways, and that's just, different use cases, really. In this case, I knew this module was going to have a lot of weight on it. I knew it was going to be freestanding. I knew there was the potential for somebody to bump into it, so I want to make sure that this module went nowhere. And I'm proud to say that it actually did end up being the case, that it actually turned out really, really strong. So I'm going to go ahead and install the fascia here. And one of the things you will notice here is I'm not actually going to finish this module right now. I'm actually going to set it off to the side once I get some of the surfaces on it. And that's because the very top portion is actually part of that reverted loop. So it actually has a piece of curved benchwork on the top edge of it. So, and you'll see how I did that at the end of this video just before we do the walkthrough tour. But I wanted to stress the point that, when you are building a layout, don't neglect the opportunity to be strategic, to, build things in little starts and stops. It's okay if you don't finish, module A before you start on module B. Go ahead and mix it up if you have to. It's whatever works best for the layout. You want it to be, the best layout it can be. I mean, this is something typically that, if you're modeling something this large, for example, this is going to be an end-of-life layout. This is going to be something that you work on for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So you want to make sure you do it right. So what you see me doing here is the 1/2-inch plywood is actually a little bit too thick on the end there. So I actually used a planer to thin it down to 1/4 inch on the edge. And I did a quick and dirty there, and I'm not going to go back and show you how I did that in detail because, again, it is a quick and dirty. Not the safest way to do it, but it is effective. So you can also use a belt sander to do it, but it does take a lot longer. The planer is a lot faster, but it does beat up your blades on your planers, so just be aware of that. Plywood in general is really, really hard on blades, whether that's, circular saws or planers or whatever have you. So this is pretty close to where I'm going to leave this module, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. But you can see I'm doing basically the same thing I did with the last module. I'm using a straight edge to hold the shape, and then I'm putting the supports underneath it, and then I just use the router to go ahead and trim the edge. So moving on to the next module here. So we're starting on the curved benchwork finally. So, most layouts I actually start with the curved benchwork. I start with making the curves, and this one, it actually just worked out much better to actually do them last. So that's in fact what I ended up doing here. So you can see here that I'm actually drawing the curves as I need them, and now I'm going to be installing, basically it's the formwork that is going to hold the shape of the plywood as it is, as the glue is setting. So on this particular case, I'm actually using, they call it 1/4 inch plywood or 1/4 inch luan, but it's actually 3/16. So I end up using 4 layers to get my 3/4 of an inch. And so what I've got here is I've got 4 inch tall by like 1.5 inch wide little domino pieces, and then I'm measuring the plywood that I need here. I'm going to glue it together, and then I'm going to make sure that I do a nice secure job. Now, I did slow this down to real time just to show you how quick it is. So this is a little glue tool that I picked up on Amazon for about $25. And what it is it's a reservoir that's got glue in the top, and then there's actually an aluminum wheel between the glue itself and the little foam roller. And what that does is that applies a little bit of glue to the foam roller as you roll it. And, as quick as that, you've got a layer glued together. So I did all of this in about 10 minutes to get all of the layers glued together and clamped onto the form here. So it goes really, really quick, especially with that tool. And, I have to thank another YouTuber. I'll put his information near the bottom of the screen because I don't remember at the moment. But, it saves so much time. It was literally the tool of 2021. It's such a huge help. And again, you see me doing the glue, and it's not much slower than this high speed footage, to be honest. It's really quite cool how quick it is. And you can see I'm kind of distracted. I'm watching a TV show while I'm doing this glue up. So as you can tell, it doesn't take a whole lot of attention. You just got to make sure that you're quick about it, because you only got about 10-15 minutes for the glue up before the glue starts setting and it starts causing you problems. So not a big deal in this situation, but when you start doing really long ones, it can be a time-consuming mess. So here I'm just popping off all of the clamps. It's the next morning. For these types of glue ups, I always like to let it sit overnight. It just makes me feel better about it. Technically, you can unclamp this stuff after about 2 hours. I have done that more recently, but I like to give it a minimum of 4 hours. It just makes me feel better about the situation. So I'm going ahead and unclamping this here, and then never fear, that piece of plywood that I built those forms on, I'm actually going to recycle that. So what I'll end up doing is I'll end up cutting that into 3.5-inch strips, and then I'll use that on another portion of the same project that I'm building, or I'll use it on the next custom layout. And that's something I have written in my contracts, that I do recycle materials. I never use materials that are damaged beyond repair or anything like that, but I want to make sure that they're in good condition. So here you saw me rip those strips into 3.5-inch wide strips, and it's just a matter of making sure you have enough clearance above your table saw, and in most cases it works out pretty well. Here you got me making a 3-foot by 3-foot corner, but it's actually not 3 foot. It actually has to be just a little bit off of that. So what I'm doing is I made the 3-foot by 3-foot, and then I'm actually putting in the cross member, which is ultimately going to be the end of the actual module, and then I'll cut it back to that portion. This is basically me cheating, as it were, in making sure that it still matches the angle that I need, but it's it's not that complete 90-degree curve. It is just shy of that. So as you can see, I just cut it off with my little multi-tool, and then I'm going to go ahead and sheet that and make the next one. So here's the bigger one. So the bigger one is it's a quarter circle, and then it's got some straight portions, and then it actually has a half circle in the middle of it, which is a pop-up area. Now ultimately that hole is going to be hidden by a backdrop. But what this does is this allows me to build in the strength I need for the module, so I can still properly support the table itself, but it still gives access for the client to go ahead and pop up in there to reach his translate track, adjust things, whatever have you. And I'll show you a little bit more of how that works when I do the walkthrough video here shortly. But this module was actually one of the last ones, but it was actually pretty cool. I had a lot of fun building this one. So it's a lot of weird angles, so you just take it a little by little, and you notice I set the pieces in kind of where I thought they should go, and then I just draw a pencil line underneath them, cut them to that size, and then secure them in place, and that's that. So really not too time consuming, not too bad. It works out really, really well, and it's a good way to build a module pretty quickly that's going to be the shape you need it to be. And then I just, again, use my multi-tool to cut everything off flush. And here you see me securing the 1/4-inch plywood with the stapler, and then I'm going to go ahead and use the router to go ahead and route the edge off. And you see, again, no more measuring, just lickety split and quick and done. So it works out really well. So the next clip here is actually going to be some live video, and it's going to be me explaining how I'm actually going to get all of these different pieces on that that top portion of the module, all working together the way they should be. So without further ado, here we go. Okay guys, so I figured out a workaround to get my last piece on this corner module here. So as you can see from the drawing, I got myself a big cutout here, and that's so somebody can stand up and actually reach the middle of this area. Now a lot of this is actually going to be behind a backdrop, so there won't be any track here, but there will be track along the back edge and then wrapping around here along the front edge. So what I need to do is actually continue this curve and then dive it into this triangle, but I wanted to make sure that it fits right. So what I did is I set it up temporarily on the floor, just used a bunch of clamps and a couple screws to hold it in place. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually take the cutoff from making the 1/4 circle that I made earlier in the video, and I'm gonna use that once I fine tune where it goes to fill in that last piece on this module. So what I'll end up doing is I'll end up cutting this off here. So I'll probably just cut this vertical, cut this a little shorter so it all fits together nice and even. So unfortunately, this part is kind of difficult to videotape, mostly because it's not in a great area of the garage, but I will show you what it looks like when I'm done. All right, so step one, I went ahead and got this put in the right spot and then cut it to size. So now I'm gonna go ahead and mark on the existing framing where I need to cut, and then there, and then go ahead and chop those out of the way. Okay, and there you have it. So I cut down this and I went ahead and put a couple pocket screws on the back side, screwed it in that way. I cut off the top of the E-piece and just put a couple screws in it. You'll notice I actually cut this at a 45-degree angle, so that corner was tight to the back of this. And then on this side, I did have to go ahead and put some face screws in it. I do like to avoid this if I can, but in this case, there just wasn't enough room to get the pocket screws in there. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and sheet this last module, just like I've done with the rest of them, and install it tomorrow. Hi guys, we are here at John's layout. I assure you it is another actual John. I do not make the names up. So we're gonna start here on the upper portion of the layout. This is an HO layout with a reverted loop here, and you'll see that hole in there. That is purposely built so you can have access to the center of the area, and so you can reach the back portion of the track that's gonna be hidden. Walking around the corner here, this is going to be a water scene area with a hole in the benchwork to access. And then we walk around the room. There's a bathroom in the corner to a duck under bridge. Now this one's kind of different from the way I've usually built them. So I've got my support on the sides here, and then I actually put the supports on above, and that's because this whole area is actually going to be a mountain. It's going to be a tunnel here. So it's all going to be hidden. And then it's going to go into that area. So let me duck under here real quick. So starting back over here at the reverted loop, we're going to make our way around the layout. The back portion does stay level, and then the front 8 inches of the layout actually grades down at about 2%. So this is the Nolix layout, which means there is no helix. The entire layout is a helix. So you'll notice that the homosote is actually pieced together in some areas. We actually recycled a lot of the homosote from this gentleman's old layout, just as a way to save some money. And you know, that's why it's a little hodgepodgey. So this back corner here, I actually cut this upper area back about 24 inches, so he had a little more clearance to get his trains in and out. And the trains will either turn here in the forward portion, we're talking about adding a little triangle in here, or they will go towards the back of the backdrop, and then that's going to lead into a yard there across the back. Now this whole back area is actually level, and then that goes back over towards the bridge. And then you'll see the module over there that's actually all in a grade. Again, it's about 2.5%. This is going to be a whole mountain area. It's Chesapeake and Ohio, I believe, is the railroad. That's going to lead into another mountain scene. So there'll be a tunnel and mountain scene there. Open area here, like this is the hypothetical peak of the mountain, and then it's going to duck into another mountain scene here, and then come back across. Now this is all level here. There's going to be another big yard. And then again, the backside stays level, and the grade starts coming down into this corner again, and that's going to go into another yard. There's going to be a lot of mixed industry on this layout as well, so you know, that's why the grades are a little weird. Now the grade here actually starts here and works its way down in a couple different ways. So the back area does flatten out in the back corner there. Then we've got the front area here, which is coming down at about a 2% grade, and it's going to be a 22-inch radius roughly to curve these tracks around. And then there will be another track that actually ducks through on that grade there and comes down, and it's going to be 4 inches lower on this side. So coming around, we've actually got a split scene. So on this side is going to be more rural. There's going to be a river bridge here with trees and that kind of thing. And then on the other side will be a city front with a large train station, which is actually hidden in that box at the moment. Coming around in the middle here, there's a big drop down section. So this is again going to be industry, but a lot of the main lines are actually going to be raised up kind of like on an L type system all the way across this section here, which is about 7 feet wide. I've got a 2-foot module through here, and then this is actually the mega yard. So the mega yard starts about here and wraps all the way around the corner, and will be 6 to 8 tracks of roughly 30 feet of yard. And then you'll see back in here, a grade starts in the back along the back 6.5 inches and goes down. It goes down all the way across the whole back end of the layout here. Wraps in underneath this module here, turns the corner, and then comes down. Now this area here is basically just going to be a pass-through area, so there's only going to be 2 tracks. So that's why it's only about 12 inches deep. And that comes down, wraps around the corner here, levels out, and then continues on into what's essentially going to be a big paper mill area. So there'll be waterfront there, and then the big mill is going to fill in this lower area here. So this is what is called a point to loop. So we've got the point, which is down here where the mill is, and then the loop up there, which is the big reverted loop. So this project was not small. You followed me all along the way, and I hope you guys learned a few things. If you did or didn't, if you have questions, comments, concerns, bad jokes, feel free to leave them down below. I'm happy to help how I can. If you like this video, please like and subscribe so you can stay in touch with what I'm up to. And we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.